Nearly a decade ago, Lexus introduced a radically styled luxury coupe to America called the RC. Now, at the time, the RC was a replacement for the old ISC in Lexus's North American lineup, and this vehicle was designed to go head-to-head with European stalwart rivals like the BMW 4 Series, Audi A5 Coupe, and of course the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Now, over the years, Lexus has given the RC some big rounds of updates, which the biggest one came back in 2019. However, for 2024, the RC continues to soldier on as a very unique coupe because this is the only vehicle left in the segment where you can get a naturally aspirated V6 or V8 engine. As you can see this week, we are testing out, which I believe to be the sweet spot in the RC lineup, an RC 350 F Sport with the company's signature full-time all-wheel drive system. So if you guys are looking for a luxury sport coupe that's a little bit more old school, that's also going to give you that reputation for reliability and build quality, how does the latest 2024 Lexus RC 350 stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling of the RC, which this car still turns heads even though it has been on the market for almost a decade, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, Lexus technically offers a choice of 4 different engines underneath this hood. This model here being the RC 350, it has the only naturally aspirated V6 left in the segment. Now, in a world where everybody is going to forced induction, smaller displacement engines with less cylinders, this is very refreshing to find under the hood of this 2024 RC 350. It's the Toyota and Lexus tried and true 2GR FSE naturally aspirated V6. So it's a 3.5 liter direct and port injection V6 with variable valve timing. It makes 311 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Keep in mind, if you guys go for an RC 300 in rear-wheel drive, that'll actually have a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder making around 241 horsepower. An RC 300 with all-wheel drive actually swaps out the 4-cylinder to a detuned version of this V6 making 260 horsepower. And then of course there's the RCF, which has a 5-liter V8 making 473 horsepower. That's the one that's basically for enthusiasts. There's also a track version that'll be the last year of the track version. Now, Lexus offers 2 different transmissions on this engine. There's a 6-speed auto or an 8-speed auto. Because we have the full-time all-wheel drive system, this model here has a 6-speed auto. Rear-wheel drive models will get the 8-speed auto. Fuel economy is rated at 19 in the city, 26 on the highway. It's recommended to run on premium gas. It has a 17.5-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around 340 to 350-ish miles of range on a full tank. Now, Lexus claims this model is good for 0 to 60 in around 6 seconds. It has a top speed of around 130 miles an hour. And as this vehicle sits, it is pretty heavy, even though this is a coupe, a mid-sized to compact-sized coupe. This car weighs in at just under 3,900 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up this hood, this hood is one of the longest and most bulgiest hoods that I've seen in the class. Remember, it also has to make room for a V8 under the hood if you guys go for the RCF. Now, as you can see, even though this car has been on the market for almost 10 years, I have to say, when Lexus dropped off this car, I was really impressed at the style of this vehicle, especially with the F Sport package, because this color is called Ultrasonic Blue Mica 2.0. It's a beautiful blue, one of my favorite exterior colors of blue that you can find in the segment. And you can see Lexus gave this a pretty big refresh back in 2019. I'm sorry. You can see the grille, the big spindle grille with the intricate L's and the black gloss black finish. Definitely looks great with the F Sport handling package. You can see that Lexus logo houses the sensor for the radar and adaptive cruise control. My tester here, for an extra $1,300 or $1,100, you have the premium triple beam full LED headlights, which include an LED daytime running light, LED low and high beams, an LED turn signal. There you can see down here in the lower front fascia there are some functional openings. Some of the openings are fake. However, you can see down there is actually a fog light, which is very nice to see. Although I'm surprised to say that's a fog light. I think this is just a cornering or accent light, because I didn't see a fog light switch on the turn signal or headlight stalk in the interior, which I'll confirm later in the interior portion. You can see some of the openings here are genuine. And I also like the kind of black chrome that you find surrounding the spindle grille. Overall, you can see this car is low and wide. It looks like a genuine performance car. And even though this is not the RCF, it definitely still looks like it is built to go around corners and to be used on a track. Although, as you guys will see on the driving scene, this is more of a GT luxury cruiser. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see this vehicle is technically built on an interesting architecture where it shares parts from the IS and the old Lexus GS. They call it like a Franken Coupe because it has different parts and componentry from 3 different models or 2 different models. But at 185.7 inches long with a 107.5 inch long wheelbase, this is a little bit longer versus a Lexus IS, the sedan version of this car. And if you're comparing it to something like the Toyota Supra, which is technically the same price as this car, the Lexus is about a foot longer in the overall length. So that shows you the comfort-oriented mission of the RC. Now you can see the wheels. These are the F-Sport specific gray/black finished 5-spoke 19-inch wheels on a Bridgestone Turenza all-season tire. You can see the brake calipers are also 13.1 inches with a 4-piston high-performance brake caliper. You can get a bigger brake if you guys go for the rear drive model, which will have orange painted calipers, I believe, and it'll also have an inch larger brake rotor. You can see the tire sizes measure a 235 by 40 R19 inch wheel, which the square setup is also the same on the rear. The rear drive model will have a fatter tire in the back. My tester, being an F-Sport, also has the F-Sport handling package, which means you have adaptive dampers. There's an F-Sport badge here. And then you also get these black painted side mirrors, which have an integrated turn signal. The sunroof, you can see no pano roof, but it does open up to let in some fresh air. I also like how the chrome trim has been blacked out, which is nice. And then looking at the profile here, you can see gorgeous looking car. Love it in this blue exterior. I would have liked to see the calipers painted in blue or red or orange, however, as opposed to the black painted caliper on the front. But overall, looking at the rear, you can see Lexus also gave it an updated look for the taillights. It doesn't have the newer Lexus design elements here with the full light blade taillight or the new Lexus logo where it spells out the name. This model here also could use a rear spoiler of some sort. There's kind of a built-in one in the actual trunk lid, but it does look a little bit naked without an actual spoiler. You can see the badging back here. It shows an RC 350 and all-wheel drive badge. No F-Sport badge back here. And then you can see there's kind of a rectangular exhaust system. The engine itself actually sounds pretty good. That's one of the reasons why you want this vehicle with its V6. I'll fire it up so you guys can hear how it sounds real quick. But compared to the wheezy sounding 2-liter turbo 4s, this is just a very refreshing sound to hear. Now, opening up the trunk area, you can see the trunk is a conventional style trunk where it has hinges that kind of intrude a little bit on the cargo area, although it's kind of closed off. But Lexus says you have around 10.5 cubic feet of space back here, which is fine. It's a little bit less than some of the competition. You can see my tester has this little nifty cargo net. There's also a 60-40 split area in the rear seat back. And then if you look underneath here, you can see there looks like a temporary spare, so you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit, which is kind of a nice surprise. But overall, if you guys need more cargo capacity, obviously the IS sedan will give you a little bit more, or some of you may be looking at an SUV, but for a coupe, this still has a relatively usable size trunk. So now let's move on to the interior of the 2024 Lexus RC 350. Now, before we get inside, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the current Lexus fob that the company's been using in all their other products. It has your usual lock, unlock, remote trunk, and panic feature. The key fob itself also has remote start built in. So if you push the lock button 3 times, then hold it on the 3rd time, that'll actually activate a remote start feature. Lexus does not offer their feature where you can use your phone as a key. Not on this car. It is definitely getting a little bit old in terms of the lineup. So it doesn't have all the newest tech features, but you can see the door handle is a traditional door handle. It has a little sensor here. If you touch that, that'll lock the door for you. Surprisingly, my tester does not have power folding mirrors, which I was shocked to see it lacked. And if you touch the back of the door handle, that'll unlock the door for you. This is not the digital latch door handles like you'll find on the new RX or the next Lexus NX. Now, as you can see, my test car also has an interesting color combination with the interior. This is the black and yellow 2-tone New Lux interior with the kind of gray trim. The gray streamline trim is what they call it. Lexus also offers like a white or a red interior for those of you who prefer something a little bit more lighter or bold. You can see there's like contrasting yellow stitching and yellow accents, which look really nice. The seats adjust in 10 different ways, which I think the 10-way adjustable seats is also great. You have 3-person memory here on the driver's side, and these seats are heated and ventilated. So the 10-way seats are also included on the front and the rear of the vehicle, which is definitely nice. You can see on the door panel here, it has like a soft touch injection molded plastic material here. You have some really cool like Japanese style aluminum washi trim, more of that gray streamline trim which you've seen in some other Lexus products. Nice padded area over here with the contrasting stitching. This is leather stitched. And the Mind Tester also has the Mark Levinson upgraded premium sound, which sounds good for those of you who are audiophiles out there. The switchgear also has a nice metal accents to it. They feel really high quality. The door handle here is a plastic, silver painted plastic, but again, it all feels relatively nice. And even though it is old, it still gives you that impression of quality. Now, getting inside, this vehicle has a low step-in height with only like 5.3 inches of ground clearance. As I get in and shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. Remember, this platform is starting to get a little bit old, but once you're inside, you can see Lexus did make a big change with the infotainment system a couple years ago, but put your foot on the brake, push that start-stop button, and the engine will fire up. This is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid, so it has a traditional starter sound. You can see the steering wheel is power, tilt, and telescoping. And this is a very old steering wheel. You can see it's got the Lexus F Sport badge there, along with paddles on the wheel, some of the old switchgear, and even the old Toyota cruise control stock here. And then you have the old gauges here where you have that LFA inspired 7-inch digital instrument cluster where you have a sliding and moving tachometer. It also will change colors depending on your drive mode. Go to Sport, Sport Plus, it changes to white. Go back to normal and it changes to a black look. And you can also adjust what you want that screen to show there, the helper screen. It all looks okay. It's just starting to look a little bit dated. What is new, however, is this new 10.3-inch display that's now a touchscreen. It's built on the older Lexus touchpad interface, although it does include wired connection, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. This is not the new Lexus interface that we see on the new Lexus NX or Lexus RX. You can see going to the regular display, it offers a split screen view, but it's very, very old. So kind of keep that in mind. For those of you who want something a little bit newer, this is definitely looking like it's showing its age, but I like how Lexus has made it a touchscreen. They've pushed the screen out further, obviously. The 8-inch screen, an 8-inch screen is going to be standard. This is the optional 10.3, which includes navigation, which again, most of you will probably skip and use your phone anyways. Now, in terms of the materials, you can see nice padded leather stitch area over the instrument panel hood. Over here on this area, it is soft touch injection molded plastic over here as well with some faux contrasting stitching. More of that streamlined gray trim, which tries to look like a gray titanium finish aluminum look. It carries over here onto the center stack. The controls here for the switch here, you can see I mentioned earlier this car looks like it has fog lights, but I don't see an actual fog light switch here. So I think those lights that we saw earlier were just cornering lights. So as you can see here, the turn signal stalks, they're the older ones where they return back to center as opposed to the newer Lexus systems where they've kind of done away with that. Your wiper controls are over here. And then over here, you can see there are some touch sensitive controls here for the dual zone climate control. That's definitely looking old. There's even a CD player in here that shows, again, the age of this car. The gear selector, this controls the 6-speed auto. If I put it into reverse, you can see my tester has a backup camera, which has trajectory, but no full 360 surround camera. I think you can get that on the IS, but I don't know if you can get it on the RC. Which is, again, something that you may want to consider if you guys are cross-shopping the two. Drive mode selector is here. It's a big dial where you can twist it to the right to go to Sport, Sport Plus. You can go to Custom or Normal and Eco mode. There's also a snow, traction control off. There's your brake hold feature. You can see the trackpad is still here. So if you guys don't want to use the touchscreen, you can go and use the trackpad if you guys would prefer, which also works, obviously, if you guys have it in the CarPlay function where you kind of have to scroll around through here, or you can just use the touchscreen. Just my recommendation, ignore this and just use the touchscreen. It definitely works well as a touchscreen. It's padded armrest over here. Open this up. You can see there's 2 USB charging ports. They're USB-A's. That's how you connect your phone. It's a pretty reasonable sized storage compartment, and it's also got a padded center console area. The seats are really comfortable and supportive. They hold you in place nicely. They look great. The heated and cooled function works well. The headrest seems plush. The new Lux feels basically as nice as a leather material on other competitors, which is great. The glove compartment, you can see, is damped but not lined with felt. It's a pretty decent size. The rear view mirror is auto dimming, but Lexus does not offer their digital camera rear view mirror. You have LED map lighting throughout the cabin, a nice material here for the headliner, along with the sunroof, which, as you can see, there's this interesting hard portion here where it's kind of like a 2-piece look for the sunshade cover, which I didn't expect. This also opens up completely, which is nice. In terms of ambient lighting, this is where the RC also shows its age. It doesn't offer their thematic ambient lighting. It's pretty dark in here at night, but overall, as you can see, it has most of the features that you want. The big upgrade is obviously this, but it still could use the new Lexus interface, which I was hoping Lexus would add for 2024. But sadly, this and the IS still have the older Lexus infotainment system. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area, and let me show you guys what that's like. Now, Lexus says back here there's 27 inches of legroom, which is pretty small. You can see, fold this or pull that lever, the seat will kind of slide forward and it'll power move itself out of the way. Now, I'll get back here to entertain you guys. It is pretty tight, but I'm 5'7", As you can see, when you pull the seat back, you kind of have to make sure your legs are out of the way because this will kind of move back and push itself against your knees. But for somebody my height, this is where I'd have it to drive. You can see my knees actually don't hit the back of the seat back, which is nice, but it is pretty tight. I can't exactly cross my legs. There's a big hump here. There's no middle seat passenger. This is only a 2+2. Surprisingly, there are rear seat vents. You have 2 storage cubbies. Back here, it is soft touch injection molded plastic with padded stitched leather back here, which is unexpected, along with the rear seat vents. I would like to see Lexus put an armrest here, considering there's no middle passenger, obviously. And in terms of the headroom space, if I sit back, my head is hitting the ceiling. So basically back here, it's gonna be reserved for small children or short people like myself, but you'll only be back here for just a few minutes because if it's a longer trip, you're gonna find it to be a little bit uncomfortable. So when it comes to premium luxury coupes, there really are not that many choices out there. And this is a segment that continues to be shrinking as we go because as you guys also know, everybody just seems to need or want an SUV over a coupe like this. But it's really great to see that Lexus still offers something in this class. And I have to say, it has been probably, I wanna say 5 years at least since I drove an RC. Now, obviously I've had some time to spend in the Lexus IS. However, the IS got a pretty significant overhaul in 2019. The RC, the last time we saw a pretty big change was back in 2019. I'm sorry, 2021 was when the IS got a pretty significant overhaul. The RC, however, has pretty much stayed the same for about the last 5 years, and this generation has been out since 2015. So almost a decade is a pretty long time. Now, the model that we're driving is the RC350 F Sport with all-wheel drive, which means we have a 311 horsepower naturally aspirated V6 paired up with a 6-speed automatic and a full-time all-wheel drive system. Lexus claims this model will do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds flat. The Powertrain is the only naturally aspirated V6 left in the segment, so it's certainly unique if you guys want a V6. You can essentially get this V6 as opposed to the Turbo 4 that all of its competitors come with. But let's go ahead and 0 to 60 test this vehicle. I've never tested it before. I've got the car in Sport Plus mode. It's in Sport mode there as well, so let's go ahead and brake torque it and we'll see what we can get. Whoa, this thing actually feels pretty quick off the line. Love the sound, wow. 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. That is actually pretty good, and it matches the time that I got in an IS350 F Sport with all-wheel drive that I tested very early this year, or maybe it was late last year. That time is respectable, and it's about a half a second faster versus Lexus's claim of 6 seconds flat. And I have to say, that naturally aspirated V6 is sweet. I mean, I'm gonna miss that engine. This is the Toyota Lexus 1GR FSE direct injection or V6 with direct and port injection. And I have to say, compared to the Turbo 4s, which can be peaky, it can be a little bit laggy at times, this engine just sounds really, really good. It's refreshing to hear and feel a naturally aspirated V6 in a world of Turbo 4s. But let's go ahead and try it again here. I'm just gonna floor it this time. Definitely feels faster when you brake torque it. 5.9 seconds there, and that's with it more slightly uphill. The 6-speed automatic in this car is definitely feeling a little antiquated. It's got very wide spacing because it's really lacking 2 to 4 gears compared to its competition. Remember, a lot of competitors have moved to an 8, 9, and 10-speed automatic, so it's really frustrating to me that Lexus still hasn't found a way to use their 8-speed auto when you option in the all-wheel drive portion of this car, because most of the time people want all-wheel drive in this segment, and you have to downgrade to a 6-speed auto when you guys go for all-wheel drive. But when I put my foot down here, you can feel I floored it. Transmission took a second to downshift, but it sounds good. And when it finally does shift, this V6 loves to rev. It has so much pull, but you really have to rev it past 4,000 RPM. There's also a fake engine sound this car is doing, where there's an ACS dial here where I have had it turned all the way up. If I turn it all the way down and turn it off, the engine still sounds good, but it's not being augmented. So there's that, when you have that little ACS feature, active sound control, turned on, it's amplifying the noise through the speakers and kind of making it fill the cabin versus when you don't have it on. You still hear that V6. It's got a ton of intake howl, which is lovely. Not much in terms of exhaust noise, but I imagine for most of you, you'll probably end up leaving it on or off depending on what you prefer. I actually like the sound, so it adds to the drama. I'm gonna leave it on the rest of the time being. But overall, this car with all-wheel drive, put my foot down here, that's where the 6-speed auto needs more gears because I put my foot down all the way and it's still not downshifting where I want it to be, but man, that engine screams. Love the way that engine screams. It's just a screamer. It really just puts a smile on my face. And even though it's not quite as fast as the turbocharged 6-cylinder competition, it still feels very fast, and I think this should be fast enough for the majority of people. Let's try it again here. We'll brake torque it again. Oof. 5.59 seconds there, so very consistent performance, and I think most people should be pretty happy. I haven't had a chance to 0 to 60 test the RC300 or an IS300, which, remember, that model, if you get rear-wheel drive, comes with a 2-liter turbo 4, making around 241 horsepower. The RC300 has basically a detuned version of this V6, but just driving this car normally, you can feel the adaptive dampers in this car. Remember, this model has the F-Sport handling package. I have it in Sport Plus. It's still soft enough to where you can drive it around in this mode on a daily basis and it doesn't really beat you up. On some, crappier road surfaces, I did notice there were more crashes and bumps. Remember, we've got 19-inch wheels. This is the sportiest handling version of the RC if you don't account in the RCF. The steering in this car is pretty quick, responsive, and direct. The body stays nice and well controlled. There's not much in terms of body lean. And remember, the RC has kind of been known as like a Franken coupe. It has like the front end from an IS. It's got the midsection from a GS. And it's got like a hodgepodge mix of different platforms, even though this car is a rear drive platform. And the downside is the weight of this car. This model that I'm driving is around 3,900 pounds. It is relatively heavy by the class, although I will say that it feels okay. I mean, it feels definitely more like a GT touring coupe as opposed to an actual all-out sports car. The RCF Track Edition is going to be the one that you're going to want to get that'll get you closest to that sports car level of grip and acceleration of drama. But the seats in this car are also very comfortable. These seats also are interesting with the black and yellow combination. They have a really nice aggressive bolstering to where it'll hold you in place, but it's still comfortable and it's kind of covered in this plushy material, this plushy leather material, which feels nice as well. It also has a heated and cooled function, which the heat and ventilation works well. My tester is annoyingly missing a heated steering wheel for an extra $150. In terms of visibility, it's a coupe. You do have that lower roof line, so I'm sitting pretty close to the roof, even though I'm not very tall, but I can still see out of the front okay. This A-pillar is a little bit large. Side mirrors are good size. The rear view out of the back is also good. Lexus does not offer their digital camera rearview mirror on this car, and then this car also comes standard with their Lexus Safety System 2.5. It does have active lane centering and automatic emergency brake control, or automatic emergency braking and adaptive cruise, and it all works okay. But remember, Lexus has an even newer system in a lot of their newer products, which this car doesn't really have. Now, in terms of fuel efficiency, the downside about this being a heavy car and a 6-speed auto and all-wheel drive and a naturally aspirated big displacement V6 is it's rated to get 19 in the city, 26 on the highway. Now, in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 19.5 mpg in mixed driving. That is pretty decent. It's right on with the EPA city numbers. However, on the highway, the best that I could muster was around 24 mpg, so it's down 2 compared to what the EPA says this car will do if you guys go for the 4-cylinder, which should do a little bit better. But just keep in mind that some competitors, specifically the electrified turbocharged competitors from like BMW, for example, will do better efficiency. This car with its 17.5 gallon fuel tank will do around 340 to 350 miles on a full tank, which is not bad. It's going to be required to use premium because, again, this is a Lexus. It's got a retuned engine software to run on premium fuel. But overall, it's still a really nice driving car compared to, some competitors. It obviously isn't going to be as fast or as performance oriented, but it has the typical Lexus strengths. This car didn't have any squeaks and rattles in my week's worth of testing. It has a very controlled and good ride quality, even in its Sport Plus setting. You can put it into a normal or a comfort or an eco setting, and the ride gets a little bit softer. The steering gets a little bit softer. The interior is definitely feeling dated, but I'm glad to see that Lexus has put their new touch screen interface, even though this is not the newest Lexus interface system, but at least it has wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But overall, just keep in mind that we have no idea what Lexus is going to be doing for the next generation RC, so if you want something like this with the only naturally aspirated V6 left in the segment, you should definitely be putting this at the very top of your list. So after spending a full week with the 2024 Lexus RC 350 Coupe, I have to say, for a vehicle that is nearly 10 years old, there is still something very satisfying about driving this vehicle. Because as you guys know, in a world where everything is going to crossovers, going to fully electric cars, going to forced induction, going to basically these giant tablet computers, this car feels very refreshingly analog, which is one of the reasons why I think the RC is definitely still worth a look. In terms of the performance, 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds for this model is very respectable. It should keep pace with all of the turbocharged 4-cylinder competition out there, and Lexus still offers you a choice between either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive depending on the climate that you live in. The rear drive model is going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more performance oriented because it's lighter, and it also has the bigger brakes and the 8-speed automatic transmission. The interior of this car, while it is very cramped in the back seat and in the trunk, the front seat area has enough space for somebody my height, although if you're taller, the headroom space might be a little bit compromised. The infotainment system, I really wish that Lexus would have given this car their new Lexus infotainment interface system that we see in their newer products. I was hoping that this and the IS would get it for 2024. Sadly, Lexus decided not to do it because we are expecting an all-new generation of the IS and potentially the RC for 2025, nothing of which has been confirmed. It's all been speculation, but there are rumors that Lexus will make that new version fully electric, which I hope is not true because, as you guys know, electric cars are kind of hitting a wall right now in terms of consumer demand and sales, and everybody really wants hybrids now. So I imagine Lexus is probably going back to the drawing board and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with the IS and the RC. Now, obviously, if you guys are looking for a vehicle like this, you're definitely not someone who follows trends because it is a very unique car. And in terms of sales, Lexus only managed to do around 2,600 units last year in the US in all of 2022. Compared to the IS, this only accounts for probably about 10% of sales because the IS did around 22,000 units. So everyone tends to buy the IS, and I can see why, because the IS is just a more practical car and it's also a little bit cheaper. Because if you guys want to get your hands on an RC 300, the base version, that starts at just under $46,000, about $45,900. Which is about $4,000 more expensive versus an IS 300 base version. I personally would rather go for the sedan, but if you guys want a coupe, you're going to want to go for this because it's one of the only coupes out there that comes with a naturally aspirated V6 engine. If you guys want all-wheel drive, it's about $3,000 extra. If you guys want the 350 model, that'll start at just under $49,000, so it's about $3,500 more versus the base RC 300. The S-Sport handling package can cost between $4,000 to $5,000 extra depending on which engine you have. This model here, being an RC 350 S-Sport with all-wheel drive, starts at just over $55,000, which is a little bit pricey if I'm being honest. With the options that my test car has, like the triple beam headlights, the Mark Levinson sound system, the bigger 10.3-inch display with navigation. With destination, my tester here is just under $61,000. 61 grand is a pretty good chunk of change because you could get essentially an IS 350 S Sport all-wheel drive, which I had early this year. That was around $56,000. I personally would save the $5 grand and go for the sedan version of this car. Keep in mind, if you guys are looking at some of the other coupe competition, an Audi A5 coupe starts at around 47 grand. A BMW 4 Series 430i starts at around 49,000. The C300 coupe also starts around 49 grand, although that is based off of the old generation C-Class as of this filming. And the Audi and the BMW and the Mercedes, you could essentially get the 4-cylinder versions of those for the same price as this. But keep in mind, again, with this car, you are getting the only naturally aspirated V6 left in this segment. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Lexus RC 350 F Sport Coupe. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.